Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is commitment. But before we get started with that, let's just take a minute or two to get present. And let's take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it and imagine sparkling, beautiful, crystal clear oxygen coursing into your lungs and into your bloodstream, nourishing every cell in your body, all your organs, and just enlivening you thoroughly. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, any stress. And let's take another deep breath in through your nose. This time, imagine sparkling white light coursing through every molecule of your being and going beyond you into the world beyond and connecting you to this amazing magical universe. And as you exhale, exhale any tension in your neck and your shoulders. And now let's just gently press our palms together and really softly rub your fingers. Oh, really softly rub your fingers against your palms until you feel that gentle tickling in your fingers and your palms that brings you present to how delicious it can be to be in these physical bodies that we get to experience the world through. And I just want to welcome you. Thank you so much for being here with me this morning. And let's talk about commitment. So many of us have all kinds of commitments that we deal with in life as obligations and as things that we don't have any choice about, and we interact with these commitments in a begrudging way where we're kind of being dragged along. Sometimes we feel the victim of all the commitments and responsibilities that we have. And I want to talk about what life would be like if we actually took on our commitments through conscious and deliberate choice, not because we have to, but to move from the obligatory state of have to the place of choice where we actually take ownership and choose to fulfill the commitments that we have. So I'm wanting to welcome you here this morning. Put in a comment. So there you are, Dido. Good. So I know that we have comments working. Let's have a conversation about commitment, because commitment can be, I think. Good morning, Catherine. Welcome. So glad to see you back with us. And welcome to everybody else who's joining us this morning. We're talking about commitment and how so many of us really interact with our commitments as obligations. Oh, and just in case, I just should show you my custom ear decoration for today. I had an earring that tore my earlobe, so I got it sewn back together yesterday. So this is my new decoration for a little while. No cause for alarm. Anyway, commitment. So I think even obligations, we want to look at. Good morning, Kim Cozy. Welcome. So glad to have you here. Kim Cozy Venter. I'm so thrilled to see you back. Ouch. You know what? It doesn't hurt that much, but thank you. Hurts a little. But thank you, Catherine. Catherine says heal quickly. You know, I mean to speak about commitment, but right now we're speaking about earlobes. I was shocked to have the doctor tell me that I needed to wait for it to heal for a year before I should get it pierced again. How wild is that? Who knew that it would take a year for it to heal? I had no idea. I don't know if I'll ever end up getting it pierced there again or not. We'll see. Anyway, thank you for your wishes. So let's talk about commitment, and maybe you guys would share. And guys is a generic term; it's not a gender term for me. So hopefully that doesn't offend anybody. But hopefully would you share some of the commitments? Boy, my voice. Sorry about that. There we go. Maybe you could share some of the commitments that you wrestle with. And what we want to do today is look at how we can enliven ourselves and our experience by actually aligning with the commitments that we have. So this is kind of on par with the conversation that we had about I have to do this, I have to do that, and then transforming it with I get to do this, I get to do that, and then going a level higher even to I'm blessed to do this, I'm blessed to do that. And the experience of the things that we get to do really does shift with our languaging. And what I'm looking at here is to go even beyond languaging, to bring our commitments into a place of conscious choice. And a lot of times we make commitments that we're not committed to. We make commitments to ourselves that we're not committed to, and we make commitments to others that we're not committed to. And so, for instance, here's like a commitment that we make to ourselves on New Year's is I'm going to lose 10 pounds, right? That's pretty common commitment. Or I'm going to go to the gym every day, or uh, all kinds of commitments that we then end up breaking. But the truth is that we weren't committed to those commitments in the first place. And so one of the recipes for happiness that I'm aware of is to only make commitments you're committed to. Now, there are going to be some situations that look like you don't have a choice. So, for instance, I can remember there were family affairs to go to that I felt like I didn't have a choice. And then when I reviewed more carefully for myself, what I recognized was I did have a choice. I had a choice to either go and please other people, or I had the choice to not go and suffer the consequences of my family members not being happy with me. So when we break things down to that place and recognize that we really do have a choice, and sometimes it's a choice between bad and worse, but we really truly do have a choice. And when we actively engage in that choice, it shifts the experience. So if I recognize that I'm actually choosing to go to a family affair that I didn't want to go to, I have the opportunity then to align myself internally with actually my choice to go to that event and that affair. And that choice is actually going to shape my behavior and shape my experience of the event because I literally chose to be there. So I wonder if you have any examples of situations like that where you have had obligations that you were able to reframe for yourself by coming to a point of choice, or if you have current obligations that maybe you can transform your experience of, or even your resistance, like release your resistance to those things by coming up with a way to make a choice. So Kim says mine's similar to yours, family. Yeah, so that for me, family has been a long time ago. Family was one of the most torturous kind of events, and at the time I didn't have the resourcefulness to be able to come to a place of choice. So I really just sort of followed through, but very begrudgingly. Kim says my father will command I do things. Well, that's interesting, and in some respect, Kim, you get to choose. So you get to choose to follow his commands or face the consequences, right? The consequences might be that he might not talk to you, or who knows what the consequences would be. Or, there are all different ways of interacting with these circumstances. Uh, there may be, and I'm guessing you already tried this, but there may be inroads to have a conversation about how your dad is interacting with you, perhaps. Um, that may be an opportunity for you. Uh, you might want to have a look also, and this is one of the things I want to talk about in general, is have a look at the inner commitments that we have. So a lot of times we assume commitments. Hello, David Schwartz. I love having you here. What and David says, I'm working on framing how I deal with accumulated debt. I love that. Let me talk about commitments to ourselves, okay? And Kim says, I do use the times to practice alignment too. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line with choice. So with accumulated debt, I think we get an opportunity to shape the story around that debt and the commitments that we want to make in the face of it, in terms of how we're going to handle expenses, for example. The thing that's driving the commitments is our underlying beliefs, okay, and our underlying beliefs about who we are, usually. So Kim, I don't know if this is so for you, but for me, I had a rather domineering father, and I had an unconscious commitment to be a good daughter. And whatever that meant, be a good daughter. So be a good daughter means don't get upset. Be a good daughter means toe the line, or not anymore. Be a good daughter means being authentic for me now. My dad has passed, and that has obviously shifted my perspective on our relationship pretty dramatically. So Kim says, yes, me too, but I'm not sure what you're saying yes to at the moment. So I can't respond. Sorry. But back to this idea of debt. We can be making ourselves really bad and wrong around decisions we've made. I think in our culture, it's really easy to be judging ourselves in all kinds of ways, and framing how you deal with any circumstance. Oh, gotcha, Kim, be a good daughter. Right. Well, then what's important, if you're being a good daughter, is to start digging into what does that internally mean. And when we dig in consciously, what happens is that we find there are often contradictions, and the things that that are our operative programming sort of are not really in alignment with who we are. So this is also true in terms of debt and money, and how we interact with money, because culturally, if we assume the money concepts of our culture, uh, there's a lot of toxicity there, and so there are the rudiments of dealing with accumulated debt, like the mechanics of it, budgeting, or and maybe that's what you're talking about, David, making commitments around how you're going to budget, or how you're going to uh, deal with this debt. Those are the hows, but underneath those commitments, you need to be looking at what are your commitments to yourself, or what are your beliefs for yourself and your values, right? Because if you, and I'm not saying this is true of you, David, but let's say somebody has a value in, I'm going to be just really extreme, designer clothes. Okay, so my highest value is, and this is not for me personally, I'm being hypothetical here, but I have to have a Gucci belt, and that Gucci belt is going to set me back $1,200, and I it'll put me into debt. And so we get to look at what becomes more important, being out of the debt or the things that are attracting us to spend our money, right? And if it's more important to have the Gucci belt than it is to be out of debt, then um, uh, we might get to reassess our values, uh, because what is driving that desire? And I'm not meaning to cast shade on people that appreciate designer clothing. I'm just using this as an example that is kind of an extreme example. Like if you don't have money to put food on the table and you buy a Gucci belt and it puts you in debt, then it's time to start looking at what are your priorities. And obviously, on the first take, the priority is the Gucci belt. But if we dig more deeply, what does that Gucci belt represent? And if we're digging into what it represents, then we have an ability to start looking at other ways that we might build self-worth. Because my guess is that if I believe that a Gucci belt is higher priority than food on my table, then there's something that it's doing for me. And if I look at what it's doing for me, then I get to maybe find other avenues that will fulfill that feeling, or that will help me to experience that feeling without needing the external validation or confirmation. So dealing with debt, that's something that I've done in my life a lot, David. Thankfully, not at the moment, but it really comes to a matter of prioritizing, and we get to look at what's most important. And I think the way to get aligned with commitment is to really find the motivator, find the thing that is really going to connect with our true sense of self and heart and purpose and meaning. And one of the things when I've been through many times in my life where I really didn't have much in the way of income at all and very little savings, and therefore I lived very, very frugally. And the acquisition of things is something that we are enculturated to such a huge degree. And what I started experiencing and allowing for myself in that context of all these beautiful things in the world, and I was feeling deprived because I didn't have money to be able to go and spend on all these beautiful things. My perspective shifted to say, this whole world is mine, and all those things are mine, and I don't have to have them in my possession. Somebody else can be curating for me, and I can just be enjoying them externally, without having to accumulate them. Now, there are obviously things that are essential. However, I think that we get to really evaluate what we consider to be essential. My notion around what is essential shifted so profoundly in the context of limited funds. Yeah, and it made me be creative in ways that I hadn't been creative previously. So Catherine says, I miss my parents and am thankful for the life I had when they were here. Having love, sincere love, is so important. Catherine, you were blessed to have parents that you connected with so deeply and that you knew loved you. And that's a gift that so many people don't have, where there is a contentious relationship with parents or all kinds of mixed messages. And to have had the richness of that kind of relationship with your folks is such a gift. And I am sure you miss them. Um, Kim says, that's a great way to think about material things. They're all mine and I can enjoy alongside others. Exactly. So, you know, I could go to a museum, or I could go to any store and I could enjoy everything in that store, and I didn't have to house it, and I didn't have to care for it, and I didn't have to buy it and take it with me. And it was always, there were always things there for me to enjoy. And so, you know, that's a whole different level of receiving that I think offers a fulfillment that most of us never even considered, right? You know, because wherever I go, I I love seeing what is there to be seen. I love the beauty. I drink it in. Um I it fills me with wonder to see and explore. And so all of these things that we have associated our self-worth with, or our own value, uh, those things are mostly things we don't need, really. And we this is a really, really big topic, actually. We went from commitment to the conversation about personal values and priorities, but what this comes down to is choice. And part of our choice resides in our capacity to create the context within which we experience our lives. So this notion of things and lack. Okay, so let's say we have limited funds right now, and there's something that I love. I just love it. I want it. I love it. I can't buy it. So, because I don't have enough money, or because I choose not to spend my money on that because I'm putting food on the table or whatever else. Okay. Or I'm choosing to save instead. So, the thing is that when that whole dynamic is something that we get to look at, and it's a really important dynamic when it comes to money. I've been thinking about doing a morning on money again sometime soon, because this is such an important conversation. So when there's something that we want to buy, and what's the response if we have limited funds, is I don't have enough money. And we're confirming I don't have enough money, I can't afford that. And what does that do? That makes us less than, just in that internal conversation. It makes us have an experience, or it triggers an experience of inadequacy and feeling at the effect of, and disempowered and less than. And so it behooves us to find another way to be interacting with this whole money thing. And I'm going to save that for another day, because it's a big, deep topic, money, and the impact that it has on us, and the way that we uh, create our self-worth based on money. But what about commitment? Like this idea of working with accumulated debt. There are all kinds of programs out there that can assist with accumulated debt. There is the option, thankfully, to go bankrupt, which enables you to have a fresh start. Although, you know, it's a choice that has a lot of consequences. I mean, I don't know what the situation is, but also going and clearing debt, taking on that responsibility and clearing that debt, can be such a tremendous triumph too. Now, this is actually another part of the commitment conversation, in that we get to look at, when is it time to revisit a commitment we've made. Sometimes, or some of us, I know that when I've made commitments, I will hold to that commitment regardless of the personal cost, or I have in the past. I haven't allowed myself the freedom or opportunity to reevaluate that commitment, to reassess whether that commitment is something that I should still be maintaining. And I see this in a lot of people, a lot of people's marriages. You know, people are married, they're miserable together, they make each other miserable, they're personally bereft, and they stay married because they made the commitment. And I wonder about that. I think that we really need to be connecting to a place of choice. I mean, if you're choosing to stay in that, in any circumstance that is horrific, um, be conscious about the choice. At least that's where you can regain some sense of self empowerment, right? So, in any circumstance, we get to choose. And just because you've made a commitment, and I don't leave commitments lightly, because I believe that my word is really what I have. Um, you know, if people can't rely on me to keep my word, then what kind of integrity can I have in my relationships? Now you're getting some insight into my personal belief systems for me, and we all have them. The thing is that when we use those belief systems to brutalize ourselves or others, we really need to reevaluate. Maybe those beliefs are, maybe it's time for them to change. Catherine says she agrees. So it's a tough, it's a tough decision to to decide when you've really owned a commitment. It's a tough decision to break that commitment because you didn't make it lightly. And yet it may be, it may be the best thing that you could do for yourself and for others. So I think the bottom line for all this conversation is to realize that we need to be present, we need to be awake, we need to or we get to be awake and conscious in our decisions, in our commitments, and to renegotiate those commitments when they no longer serve. And not, I don't, like I said, I don't do that lightly, but we don't have to necessarily break a commitment. We can renegotiate a commitment as well. And those are commitments to self as well as to others. So to circle back to the money thing, there's so much about money that we use to judge ourselves. And we get to really take a solid look at what are the underpinnings, what are the underlying things that got us into a certain circumstance, and based on our values, what are the most appropriate choices to remediate whatever situation it is that's arisen. So anyway, commitment. Let's be conscious. Let's choose. Let's choose the commitments we're committed to. And the ones that we're not committed to, either if there are things that are unavoidable, find a way to choose it. And if not, if you're not committed to it and it's not something that is non-negotiable, then choose another commitment. And that way you're going to be happier, the people that you're interacting with are going to be happier, and you'll be able to trust yourself for keeping the commitments that you make because you really truly did commit to them. And so, for instance, to circle back to the New Year's resolutions and those commitments that we make for ourselves and often don't keep, what we get to look at is what is a commitment I am willing to keep, truly keep. Maybe I'm not willing to keep the commitment to go to the gym every day. Maybe that's what I would like to be able to commit to, but the truth is I'm not really committed to it. So maybe I would really be able to commit to going to the gym once a week. And it's sort of an opportunity for us to get real with ourselves and then make commitments that we really are in alignment with. So, on that note, I'm going to say thank you so much for playing today. This was great. I so appreciate your engagement, and I so appreciate sharing these conversations with you. And this is the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin, and every weekday morning at 9:30 we go live on Enlightened World Network, and lately on my Facebook page as well as YouTube and Periscope and LinkedIn through Enlightened World Network. So I hope you'll join me again, and also check out Enlightened World Network's Facebook page. There's all kinds of great programming there. And with lots of love and compassion for you, I thank you again and hope to see you back here soon.